Welcome to our podcast. This is Friends on Fire.
I'm Mike. I'm a lifelong devotee of financial independence. I even wrote a book about it.
And I'm Maggie, a newer convert, but just as passionate, especially on the intersection of minimalism and financial independence.
We're one and the same.
We are two like-minded friends who believe that talking about money with your friends and family opens the door to financial well-being.
The Friends on Fire podcast is about dispelling myths, building financial acumen, and sharing your financial independence journey with the people you care about.
This is Friends on Fire.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, Maggie. How's it going?
It's going good. Guess what I just did?
You voted.
I did. I just did my early voting.
That's great. How was it? You went in person?
Yeah, I went in person. I wanted to go in person. I know I could do an absentee ballot. I just wanted to go in person, though I don't want to wait for the day of because I don't want to, deal with whatever long lines may be happening. Mm-hmm. And it was super smooth. There was, 5 or 6 people in line in front of us. We were in and out of there in 20 minutes. It was very nice. Yeah.
I got my absentee ballot and filled it out within 10 seconds and then dropped it off at the city hall like the next day. I'm not messing around.
Yeah, no, I like it. It's a good reminder for everybody to get out there and vote. Incredibly important.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, get out there and vote.
All right. So what are we going to be talking about today, Maggie?
We are going to talk about wants versus needs and some tips for buying less stuff. I'm super excited about this topic for a number of reasons.
This does sound like a very Maggie topic.
I don't know why I am so excited about it. I was just talking to my husband about this earlier on our way to go vote because I usually don't like sit there and tell him like what episode we're about to record or something, but it was just top of mind. And I was like, I just really get excited about topics that are related to a bit around like the psychology of why people amass so much stuff and spend so much money on things that may not be that important, in life, or at least in my opinion, are not that important in life. And so I'm just fascinated by that. And I think the idea of what you truly need versus what you just want and being able to identify and separate that and then make decisions based on it can be such a powerful shift and driver in your personal finance journey and journey to financial independence or whatever your goals are, just, getting your finances in order. So I'm excited to dig in.
All right. I'm excited too. You mentioned the word journey. And I think one thing that happens with wants versus needs is that, it's all on this spectrum. And as you become more focused on financial independence and as you become more frugal, that point of like want versus need shifts over time. And so like maybe you'll look back after a couple of years and realize like something you thought you needed.
Oh,
you didn't
totally.
Really so.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think about my feelings on this topic now at the age of 40 versus my feelings when I was 30 or 20. I was making very different decisions, right? So I certainly feel personally way more evolved and in line with what I truly need versus what I want. And I want a lot less stuff now than I did a long time ago, which is interesting.
So hearing you say that you're 40,
does that sound old to you?
It does sound really old because I haven't had a birthday, so I'm still 37. So I'm like a baby compared to you.
You are just a little baby bird. I also think this topic is interesting. And like, let me ask you, on a scale of 1 to 10, what's your like excitement level on this topic?
10 being the most excited.
Yeah, 10 being the most, 1 being like, eh.
I mean, the topic itself may be a 4, but I'm feeding off your enthusiasm, so it's like a 6.5.
I love it. But here's the thing. I knew it was less interesting to you, and I know why. So that's why I wanted to ask you.
Oh.
So I'm going to tell you why.
You're going to tell me about my own feelings?
I'm going to tell you about your feelings. This is even better. You don't even have to talk about your own feelings. I'm going to talk about them for you. It is less appealing to you because, as we've talked about many, many times, you are naturally wired very differently than many people, right? So you don't have the same, in my opinion, from what I know of you since we've met, you do not have the same, I don't even know a way to say it. I was going to say you don't have some of the same desires as other people, but I was going to say you're just way more disciplined and like you just don't seem to have as much of a struggle to like not buy things, you know what I mean? And to live a frugal, simple life. And it's a struggle for many people, but it's not for you, right? Like when we've talked about that a lot of like things where I'm like, ooh, I really want to do this. And like, it doesn't even cross your mind, right? Like when we talk about splurging, you're like, what's splurging?
Okay, so you raise an interesting point. I would describe my own feelings about this as I have all the same wants as everybody else. I just want them a lot less. And usually I want them so little that I'm not willing to spend any money on them.
Yeah. That's kind of what my point was, I think. But I don't know. Okay, let's dig into the topic.
All right.
So I think we should start with a bit of a definition on wants versus needs.
Okay.
Let's talk about needs.
I got this.
Okay.
A need is a 2019 Subaru Ascent, right? With the double-sized moonroof?
Come on, Mike. Don't mock me. That's a want. I know that.
Okay. I'm kidding. You can keep going.
I know you're kidding. Okay, so a need is shelter, food, water, some sort of medicine or medical care that you really need, clothing, and other things that you truly cannot live without. And even within that, when we talk about those needs, like when I say shelter, I don't mean a big fancy house in a certain type of neighborhood, right? I mean like shelter. Like you ideally need somewhere to live that has, central heat. I don't know. We won't even get into that point, but I was going to say central heating.
Need central heating.
I mean,
Maggie.
I don't need air conditioning sometimes. My family seems to. But you know what I mean? Like there's some level of what would be like considered a basic level of a need for shelter in the type of society we live in, but it's way below how most people live. Right. And so that's why I think to really break down a need, it really is the basics. So the basics are like clean water, basics of food could be like rice and beans and some sort of vegetables and, enough clothing to cover your body and keep you warm. And like I said, basic shelter, anything beyond that really is a want or a desire. Right. And that's a very like aggressive definition perhaps, but it's true. Right? You don't need that Nike shirt, that Nike brand shirt, which I happen to know you probably didn't pay for that shirt.
I did not pay for that shirt. So that's a terrible example.
I know it's a trade from work you do for the Michigan lacrosse team, but just as an example, like you don't need a name brand shirt. You need to wear a shirt, but like you don't need a fancy shirt. You know what I mean?
You're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
Mm-hmm. I am.
So the first one is physiological needs. And that's what you're describing. Yeah. You need to breathe air and drink water, and you need a place to protect you from weather. And then, the next one up is safety needs. So you need personal security and you need health. And then, after that, I think you get into some of these other things about wants. And, I kind of did a take on Maslow's hierarchy in my book. And I talked about like the hierarchy of spending needs and how you should really only spend money on those basic needs, like what you're talking about. And everything else becomes a want or something that you don't necessarily need to spend money for. And so if people are familiar with Maslow's hierarchy, it's just those first two things that we're describing as needs.
That's a great point. So let's shift to a want, right? So
now this is the 2019 Subaru Ascent with the double-sized moonroof,
exactly.
Right?
So why don't you walk through wants, Mike, since you want so much, like these fancy cars you have.
So in every category of real needs, so whether it's like clothing or housing or food or whatever, there's going to be a point where it becomes a want and not something that is essential to your life. Like
you said, Mike, there are wants in almost every single category of needs, like we've been talking about. So for example, you need to eat, but you don't need to eat something fancy. You want to eat a fancy, expensive cheese. You want to eat out at a restaurant. You want to take your kids out for ice cream to an ice cream parlor.
Why are all your examples about dairy products, man?
I don't know, but I do the vegan version of all these things. Like I love a good bougie vegan cheese. They're very expensive, actually.
They are very expensive.
Same thing with vegan ice cream. Super expensive.
Vegan ice cream is pretty good, though. I have not yet
delicious.
I've not yet really wrapped my arms around vegan cheeses.
They're okay. There's some amazing vegan cheeses. You got to get the right ones, though.
Okay, we'll talk about this after the show.
Yeah, side topic. So, right, like you need to drink clean and safe water, which arguably on how safe it is, but like you could get from tap water in most areas that people may live in, though I understand you can't get it everywhere. but you want to drink bottled water. You want to drink sparkling water. You want to drink a fancy wine or, some other sort of soda beverage or something else that is more expensive and not very good for you. That's a want, not a need.
As I touched on earlier, there is a line, very fine line between wants and needs. And even though you could objectively argue where the point is for everybody, people feel very differently about where that line is.
Totally.
And so being able to recognize the line and then move it over time is how you become more frugal. It's how you get closer to financial independence. And that's what we're going to try to help with.
Yeah. And Mike, this was my point early on of me saying that you were less excited about this topic, because to me, your area on that line is, whether we say, further down or further up, whatever direction, right? It's in a different place than, I don't even know how to describe the line, since we're talking about a theoretical line here, but you know what I mean?
I'm having trouble following where this metaphor is going.
Your area. So here's the thing. Your area of where that line is even different than mine is. To your point, it's different for everybody. But you joke about my, 2019 Subaru. That's a point on a line where I made a call and a trade-off, right? A judgment call. Your area of the call you would make is it's much further down the line, right?
I don't understand. If it's a line, why are we talking about surface area? I'm super confused by this, Maggie.
Let's move on.
Okay.
So the idea here is, if you can spend some time really breaking down what is a want versus a need in your life, then you can have some truly, aha moments about how you're spending your money. And like Mike said, really, that can be, to me, the point that can really make your mindset shift about how to improve your personal finances and what you truly need. And again, we're not suggesting you deprive yourself. I mean, we keep joking about my car. We are suggesting that you appreciate and recognize the difference between wants and needs, and then use that insight to influence better purchasing decisions and better saving habits as a result.
And just one extra point on the deprivation is that if you identify and then move that line of want further down towards frugality, the times when you do splurge or when you do buy something that is very clearly a want, it is even more meaningful to you. So if you are really far down the line towards overspending on where you think that want versus need trade-off is, then this is where we get into lifestyle inflation. It's where the line continually moves and you're never quite happy enough because you always want more. And so moving the line back towards frugality means that just a little bit extra makes you really happy and satisfied.
And I think along the same lines as lifestyle inflation, because I think they're somewhat related, is this idea of escalating commitment. And I think it's an important concept for people to understand. So this is the idea where, when you get a bigger house or when you buy a big house, you now are like, okay, I've got this big house. Now I need to fill all the rooms in it with furniture. And now I live in a neighborhood where everybody around me drives fancier cars. And I feel like my 2003 Ford Explorer doesn't fit in and I look funny. And so now I feel the need to buy a bigger car. And I keep escalating my commitment to this piece of lifestyle inflation that I've gone down. So it's this natural human behavior that you've got to kind of catch yourself on. Because just because you started down a path doesn't mean you need to continue and escalate it. You can stop it at any point, right? You don't need, it's such a big thing to kind of catch yourself on. And it's related, I think it's very related to lifestyle inflation in so many ways.
And the examples you gave are great. But I think that's where people might stop in their recognition of the escalating commitment. So you buy a bigger house and then you got to buy nice furniture. And then you have to hire somebody to clean your house because it's too big and you can't manage it yourself. And then when you get a stain on your couch, it's super expensive and you need to have it professionally cleaned, and that's very expensive. Or if you have a very fancy car, you have to get it professionally cleaned. Otherwise, driving a dirty luxury car doesn't make any sense. And so you will continue to tack on costs to these purchases, but you won't really be aware of them unless you take a step back and say, what am I doing?
Yeah, my house is too big. I can't possibly clean it myself anymore. I need to hire a professional cleaning service. Mm-hmm. I have all this nice stuff. I need a fancy security system to protect it. It's just all these, it just goes crazy. So I think another thing that is important to remember is that it is normal to struggle with this. We all do. Even Mike, right? Like you were saying earlier, you were like, I still have wants. And so
I just don't want them very much.
Yeah, but you have fewer wants sometimes than the average. You've like honed, and I don't know what you'd call it, sort of your wants over the years.
Yes, you are correct. It is, I still have wants and I still struggle with it. I don't struggle with it as nearly as much as I think other people do.
Yeah,
but
including
it's a struggle.
me. Even just when we share stuff, like I'll tell you my quick dry erase board story, because I think I actually put an Instagram story on it the other day. I wanted to buy a dry erase board to put on my wall in my former guest room, now office, now that I'm working remote so much and will likely be for a while. And I was like, oh, this is going to make me more organized. I love it, blah, blah, blah. Ignore the point that my husband's like, do you ever use the dry erase board in your office at work? And I was like, not that often, but I'm going to use it here. So anyways, I text Mike, and the kind I want is like, if I'm going to get one, I want to get a nice one. I want it to look nice. Of course. And so I look, first off, my brother had bought one that was like $500. That was like this bigger size glass one. I'm like, well, I found one that was like $110. Then I found a $90 version. And I text Mike and I'm like, what do you think about the idea of me getting this? And he was like,
rip off.
What'd you say? Rip off. You're a man of few words when I ask you things like that. Usually you'll just be like, no. And this is super helpful. We'll get into accountability partners soon, but it was helpful. And I then was like, well, I also was thinking about this like Home Depot version where you can buy the panels for like $5, or you can get a huge panel for like $13. And Mike, you'll be proud, right before this, after we voted, we went to Home Depot and I bought my $10 2 panels. And I'm going to actually do command strips instead of screws. So my full purchase was $20.
That's great. Well done.
I feel good about it. So anyways, so let's jump into some tips for how to manage your wants, recognize them, manage them, and as a result, buy less stuff.
So the first thing is stop impulse purchases by instituting a waiting period. This is going to be super painful for people, but it is so effective.
It is so effective. I just like to repeat what you say.
Yeah.
So effective.
But if you get in the habit of creating some distance from the time the idea pops into your head to the time where you actually pull the trigger, you're going to find yourself not wanting to make as many purchases as you normally do.
So there's a couple of cool rules that other people have come up with around this, or you can just come up with your own of just like make yourself wait some period of time. We'll put a link in the show notes, but the minimalists have this method called the 30-30 method, where they basically say if there's any purchase over $30, then they have to wait at least 30 hours before they buy it. And then if it's over $100, they have to wait 30 days, which is a long time. And I've done this myself on a number of things. I don't always wait 30 days, honestly. I'll just sort of be like, well, I know I want this thing. I'll write it down in a list, and then I'll just wait some undetermined amount of time. And usually I forget about it and don't even want it anymore. And I'd like go back to the list, weeks later and be like, oh, I wonder why I wanted that. And the moment's passed. And there's even a lot of research that like you get the buzz when you actually purchase the thing, not even when it arrives. And I talk as if nobody purchases anything in person and it's all delivered to your door, because that's kind of how so much works these days. But I know people who also just like put stuff in their Amazon cart and then will only do an Amazon order like once or twice a month or something like that. So there's a lot of different ways, but waiting rules can really help because often the moment will pass. And so give it a chance to pass.
And whatever rule you decide to implement, and we definitely recommend you try something, just get in the habit of not finding something and buying it in that same moment. Put any amount of time in between it and you will see improvement.
Yeah, that's a great point. Any amount of time and space.
The second point is create a purchase accountability partner and run all of your purchases through them, which is what Maggie, you do with me.
That was the dry erase board story, right? I told it too early.
That's right. But one of the things that an accountability partner will help you with is that that person won't see the same value in that thing as you do. So Maggie, if I said, I want to buy this sweet Michigan Nike shirt, look, it has a great design on it, you'd be like, it looks like every other shirt. Why do you want it? And then it forces me to come back and say, oh yeah, it is just a shirt. Why was I getting very excited?
I would actually remind you that you already own 14 other Michigan lacrosse shirts because I've seen you wear them all.
That's true. Well,
you
I
don't
would
need another one.
just to be clear, I would never want to pay for a Michigan shirt when I get them all for free.
Right.
But the point is, if there was something like this,
Yes.
you would feel differently about it and you would provide your perspective, and it might help me get out of that. I really need this right now. It's so important to me.
Yeah. And I think, choose an accountability partner that will hold you accountable to what you know your goals and ideals are, or you want them to be. Don't choose someone who's just going to enable you and tell you yes every time, right? If your mom or whoever it is like constantly encouraging you to do things that aren't on the trajectory you want to go on, that's not the person you ask. I like to ask you, Mike, because I know you will challenge me. Even if I disagree, I still make my own decision in the end. But like, you challenge me, and I just saved, $80 to $100 on being like, okay. And also, my husband challenged me, right? His was more of like, are you even going to use this dry erase board? And I was like, well, I'm going to do it now that my mind's set on it. So, but it's just choose the right person, and you could go. That's what social media is great for. If you don't know the person, like, go on Instagram, ask other people in this space. And again, just an accountability partner can be so helpful because they will call you out and really make you question things.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of questioning things, the next one is ask yourself some tough questions and be really honest with the answers. And I think asking these questions to yourself will often make you question, like, again, what you truly need versus what you just want and why you want something. So some example questions is this something you're going to use regularly? Is it going to add value to your life? Will it bring you joy? Do you have room for the item in your house? Are you willing to get rid of something else to bring this new item in? Can you truly afford it? Are you getting it because you want it, or are you getting it to impress somebody else, right?
This is the question that people are going to have the most difficulty with because it might not even occur to them why they are making a certain purchase. And so one of the things that, like, I don't buy a lot of clothes, but when I do buy clothes, I really have to be honest with myself and say, like, why do I want this style of clothing? Like, why do I want this brand of clothing? And it's never because, if I'm being honest with myself, it's never because it's like more functional. I have plenty of functional clothes. It's like I buy something in a certain brand or a certain style because I'm trying to look a certain part or impress a certain group of people. It's typically like work related, but that is really hard to admit to yourself. Yeah. And you have every right to admit to yourself, I am buying this particular brand because I want people to think that I am successful and have a lot of money. And if you are comfortable with identifying that and being okay with that, and you still want to buy it, that's fine. But at least you are honest about it, and you don't get into this trap where you've made tens of thousands of dollars of similar purchases and you didn't realize you were doing it for somebody else.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'll also add, just on the clothing topic, and I'll use the shirt I'm wearing right now. Not that our listeners can see it, but I am wearing a tank top. You like my tank top?
I mean, it looks like every other tank top.
Okay, well, it's a Lululemon tank top, I'd like you to know, Mike. I recently bought it in Miami. It cost me $38. I don't buy a lot of clothes. It might be one of the first articles of clothing I bought all year in terms of like a shirt. And I bought it not because it's Lululemon, because nobody can see that there's maybe a label somewhere, but like nobody else can see that. I needed another, wrong use of the word need. I have some other tank tops. I wanted another tank top. I could afford it. I felt like it was okay because I've not bought a lot of clothing. If anything, like I've almost bought no clothing this year. And it fit me well. I liked the way it looked. I felt like it was a decent quality and it would like last a while because I don't buy stuff that often. And so even asking yourself that question of like, am I doing it to impress someone else? Like sometimes it's okay to say I bought this because I feel good in it and I think it's flattering on me. And when I look good, I feel good. Like that's okay.
Okay.
That's different than saying I bought it. I don't know. I couldn't even say I buy anything to look good for anybody else because I don't see anybody else these days. Anyways, let's keep moving on. Okay, next one.
An easy thing to do is reduce the amount of times you walk into a store or visit a website. These are especially walking into a physical place. These are easy things to monitor and restrain yourself on. I think where it gets difficult is like when you're scrolling through Instagram and you see ads that pop up for something that they know you want, and it's really easy to click on it. But the decision to like go to Amazon and start looking for something, the decision to go to Target and start browsing, you can reduce the amount of times you make that decision and follow through on it.
I think I've mentioned this before, but I have like a problem with REI. If I walk into an REI store, I walk out with some clothing or something. I love everything in it. I can't help myself. And over the past almost 2 years, I have stopped myself from going to REI. When I really actually went today, I did curbside pickup because one of my kids' tire tubes broke. I ordered it online. I got just that. I was like, I can't go anywhere near the store because I won't be able to, resist.
I feel like you're lying, Maggie.
What?
You haven't bought anything in 2 years at REI?
Oh, no, I didn't say I haven't bought anything. I said I haven't just like walked into the store.
Oh, okay.
So I used to just go there because it's really close to my house. And I'd be like, I'm just going to pop into REI. And I'd pop out $150 later with a couple of new pieces of clothing. And I don't need anything. And so I was just like, I'm going to quit just going to REI. I've gone when I needed something and I've gotten that.
When you
need
it.
I've gotten the heck out of there. Needs the wrong word.
Maggie, do you even know what episode we were recording right now?
I did. Well, like I went in there. We were going on this hiking trip last year, and I needed. This was a borderline need one.
Okay.
But like a sleeping bag liner because you're in these big things. You don't have a sleeping bag, but you got to hike in yourself, and so you're in these big bunk rooms, and that's what they suggest you have so that you're not touching sheets and stuff that other people have. Other dirty, sweaty hikers have slept in. Anyways, let's keep going. Okay. I was just making the point of like, yes, when you stop going into stores, you stop buying stuff. It's one of the best methods. Another tip that is really helpful is to walk around your home and look at all of the things you already own. Remind yourself how much stuff you have. Be overwhelmed by it if you need to be, and be like, God, I already have so much crap. Do I really need something else in this? Or go to the category of the thing you're buying, right? Be grateful for all of the things you have, and then ask yourself if you really need more, right? Like, I think walking around and looking at what you already own can really help you to be kind of content for all the things you already own. And then also, like, I was joking of like, you might be a little overwhelmed and be like, do I really need books? I was organizing a bunch of books in my house the other day, and I decided to take every book that I've not yet read that I own and put it in one area instead of kind of in the category of where it belonged. And I was like, holy crap, I have a lot of books that I've never read. So now I'm already good about like, I stopped buying books recently and I'm using the library more. But it just reminded me like, surely I don't need to buy another book when I've already got so many that I haven't read. Like, why would I do that? So walk around your house.
And related to evaluating your current stock of materials in whatever category you're thinking about, one of the rules that I have been doing for a long time and I really like is the 1 in, 1 out rule. And just know that like, if you're going to go, Maggie, if you're going to buy a new tank top, you're going to go give away a tank top. I do this every time. If I buy a shirt, I'm giving away 1 or 2 shirts just because I don't want to get in the habit of buying new things. And if I go into my closet and I can't find a shirt that I'm willing to give away, that's a very clear indicator that I do not need to buy a new shirt.
Well, yeah, that's a great point that you have so many shirts you already love so much you're not willing to give them away. And if you want to challenge yourself, you can even push it up and do like a 1 in, 2 out rule or a 1 in, 3 out rule.
Yeah. Or a 1 in, 4 out rule.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
The sky is the limit on what you want to do.
1 in,
there.
everything out rule.
1 in, 99 out. Okay. So another tip is to research less expensive or cheaper alternatives to what you want. So I just told that dry erase board story earlier. That's a great example. This could be buying something used, going to a thrift store, checking Goodwill.
The Subaru Ascent, instead of, you wanted to buy the new one.
That was
you
a little
decided
bit.
to
That was
buy
a little.
the one year used.
You're right.
one.
That was a small version of that. You could.
No, I think that was a huge version.
You're right.
Of that.
That was huge. That was huge. I mean, I could have bought like a even older or something, but it was my point. But you could wait until it goes on sale. You could use the public library instead of buying books. You could borrow it from a friend. So there's a lot of times when you only really need something like once or twice and it's not worth you investing in, and somebody else has it that would likely be very willing to lend it to you. I've had a huge amount of success with that in my neighborhood when I need something and just put a message out on our Facebook group. And it's shocking. And someone's super excited to be able to do it. And then you can spread the good vibes back and do the same for somebody else when they're asking for something. So there's a lot of alternatives that could cost you nothing or significantly less that might be a compromise with yourself.
This is something that, I mean, shocker, I do this with every single purchase, because no matter what you are buying, there is always a cheaper alternative. Always. There is never a situation where there is just one place to buy something.
When you go to like eBay and buy something that's got to come over like on a container ship from China and takes 2 months for this like electrical part you need, like I'm not sure if there is a cheaper alternative.
No, that's what I mean.
Like
no, that's what I mean.
I
could have gone to Home Depot and bought that little piece of equipment, and instead I order it off eBay and it takes 3 months. This is also tying back to that waiting period piece of advice, where if you can wait 6 months to get that, drill bit adapter from Hong Kong, then, it's probably something that you have a lot of value for. If you can't wait more than like 2 seconds for it, like you need to pump the brakes a little bit.
Well, I always think this about, I use the Libby app for free audio and Kindle books from the library. And usually the book I really want, like I really want to read Think Like a Monk. And I've been so tempted to go physically buy it. And I'm like, I'm on a 4-month waiting list. I will get to read it in 4 months. That is not the end of the world, right? There's nothing earth shattering in there that I can't know 4 months later. And I'm excited to read it, but I'll be even more excited when I've waited 4 months to read it and save $20. Okay. The last point, Mike, this was, I know I'm not done with Atomic Habits yet. I know you've finished reading it, but this was actually talked about in Atomic Habits. I don't know if you remember. And it reminded me of just the importance of people understanding the purpose of marketing and remembering that, and I got all fired up about this because it was talking about like how food is produced also. And it kind of made me more motivated to like eat less junk. Remember that somebody's job is working to try to convince you to buy some item and that is going to fill a void in your life or make you happy. And their goal is to get you to give up your money in exchange for that. And they're working really hard using tons of data and other things to be able to do that. And I don't know about you, but for me, for some reason, the practice of recognizing that kind of gets me so annoyed that I'm like, well, I'm not going to fall prey to that, right? Like Instagram does an amazing job of targeting ads to people. And I see things where I'm like, wow, I really feel like I need this. It's really convinced me that I need this thing. But sometimes I take it and I'm like, no, that's their goal. They're trying to break through this wall I've built up of discipline and goals in my life. Like they're trying to break that down and I don't want to let them win. There's something about that like gets me kind of fired up. I don't know if that'll work for everybody.
I totally know what you mean. And I feel the same way. Like if you can, for lack of a better term, see through somebody else's bullshit, like it makes you feel pretty good and pretty smart about how you've been able to think critically about something that's been served up to you that most people fall victim to.
Exactly. So are you still a 4 on the scale of this topic, Mike? Warming up?
No, I told you I was a 6.5 based on your enthusiasm, and now I'm a 7.
Okay, nice. Maybe by the time we give our top 3 takeaways, you'll be a number 8.
The first one, and the premise of the episode, is continually work to distinguish between your wants and your needs. Be honest with yourself and continually strive for improvement.
And again, like we've said, recognizing that and being able to improve in that area can significantly cut down on your purchases, expenses, and ultimately your cost of living.
So if you're listening to this podcast, it's because you are drawn in some way to personal finance or financial independence. So having this recognition will significantly cut down on your expenses and bring you closer to your financial goals.
Number 2, use all of the tips and tricks that we just walked through. We walked through 8 different ones to minimize your impulse purchases and the various situations where you'll be tempted to buy things. They can be really helpful. Pick and choose the ones that work best for you and that resonate with you.
And lastly, number 3, be grateful for all the things that you do have right now And know that the money you save by not buying something that you want can be used for future financial freedom.
Great. You want to do a quick Mike's Minute on the Mic?
I feel like this is a good episode to hit me with one of these. Let's do it.
Okay. My question, Mike, is what is something that you have been wanting lately and thinking about purchasing?
Oh, this is going to be tough.
What are your next couple wants that you are kind of on the horizon now that you got your Vitamix?
I might spend 60 seconds thinking about it. What do I want?
Oh, while you're thinking about that, real quick, Mike.
You're going to talk?
I'm going to talk. So the holidays are right around the corner, right? I already see Christmas stuff out, which is crazy. So whatever holidays you may celebrate over the next few months, we're in, October, late October right now. And it is a big time for people's wants coming out, right? People are asking you what you want. People are telling you they're going to buy you something. You have family members asking you all of this stuff. We love to buy our kids tons of stuff. And so I think it's a good time to also challenge yourself and think like, how can you kind of still participate in the holidays in whatever ways that you want to? We should do a whole episode on kind of how to have good practices during the holidays, Mike. But just even there's ways to kind of combine your needs and wants in the same way to still participate in the holidays. So an example is we every year, a lot of half the gifts I buy for my kids.
Can I answer my question?
Well, then come back to your question.
All right.
Okay. Half the things we buy for our kids during the holidays are things they also need. We always get them new pajamas. I put Scotch tape in their stockings, but they get so excited. They love tape. They're always doing artwork and we're always out of tape somehow. So I put things that they need. Borderline want for artwork and other things. And I use them as Christmas gifts. I also get them some things that, are some doll or something they want. Anyways, my point is the holidays are coming up. So you can spin this around what would you want for Christmas if I was going to buy you a Christmas present? Answer it however you'd like. Back to your 60 seconds, Mike.
Okay, I thought of my answer.
Wait, you're out of time now.
Okay, I would say I need to do some travel. Need to get out of the house. I need to exploring the world and being with my family and doing those things. I would describe that as a need, psychological need.
Yeah,
a want, though, is I really want to stay in some nice hotels. Typically, I'm really cool staying in a basic hotel and exploring. We don't spend a lot of time in hotels. We do other stuff. But I really want to go to a place that has a nice restaurant and has a really nice lobby that smells of lavender or whatever it is, That's what I want.
I like it. Hey, have you been to the Intercontinental in Cannes?
Yeah.
I swear you have, because I was just watching a movie with Greg that's called Love Punch or something the Love Punch.
Okay.
It's on Netflix. What's funny is 5 minutes in, I was I swear I've seen this. It's just a cheesy rom-com. It's called The Love Punch. Anyways, they're in a scene halfway through and they're in Cannes. And I was I swear it's the Carlton, right? That you stayed at. I was I swear I've seen your photos from a video montage you did after a trip. And then I saw the Intercontinental logo on the door and I was yeah.
Oh, that was a beautiful hotel.
It made me think of it when you said a nice hotel, because we were just talking and we were that is a really fancy, beautiful hotel that's just, lovely and looked like an amazing experience. So maybe you can get back to one of those soon.
I hope so.
Okay. Well, that was a good Mike's Minute on the Mic that was taken over by me, and I gave you 27 seconds at the end.
Thanks everybody for listening. If you've been challenged or inspired by what you've heard, please rate and review the show.
And let me clarify, Mike, rating and reviewing the show is something we need. It is not something we want. We really need you to rate and review the show.
We desperately need you to rate and review our show.
Thank you. And we need you to subscribe
so that you never miss an episode. You need to listen to every episode.
You do.
You cannot miss them.
And we need you to send us any thoughts or questions. You can text us or call us at 404-981-3370. And hey, by the way, if you ever want to email us, you can just email us at maggie@friendsonfire.org anytime you'd like. You need to reach out to us. We love hearing from you. We've gotten many listener comments. We should read some on our next show. Yeah. And it always makes my day anytime we read one of those.
All right. Thanks, Maggie. This was fun.
Thanks, Mike. Have a good night.
All right. Bye.
Bye.